Okay, so welcome everyone to this virtual community meeting to discuss NPA 2024-0015.03. As Mark mentioned, if you haven't done so already, if you just joined the meeting, if you can type your name and organization if you're associated with one in the chat, and I will use that as the sign-in sheet. If you haven't done so already, also if you can mute your microphone and turn off your video if you're participating online, if you're having bandwidth issues. And as I mentioned, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the publicinput.com/neighborhood plan amendment cases website. If you do not want your image viewed publicly, you can turn off your camera. Let's So,
just for the record, because I'm not online, I'm on the phone call only. My name is Jeff Hill. I'm one of the neighbors at 3004 Cherrylawn Circle. Just putting that out there for the recording.
Okay, thank you. So Mark Walters will be the meeting facilitator tonight. My name is Maureen Meredith. I am the Plan Amendment Case Manager. Jonathan Tomko is the Zoning Case Manager. This is our contact information. So the agenda tonight, I will go over basic case information, guidelines for group discussion, how to participate in the process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map, also called a FLUM. If someone could please turn off their microphone, that would be good. Let me see if I can see who that is.
I'll work on that, Marie.
Okay. Okay. What is a future land use map, also called a FLUM? After my presentation, the applicant's agent will do a presentation. My slide says Nicole Mead, but I understand her colleague Mackenzie will do the presentation. Then we will open the floor to Q&A. So basic plan amendment case information, the case number is NPA 2024-0015.03. Property addresses are 6102, 6106, and 6108 Cherrylawn Circle. It's 1.1871 acres. The project name is Cherrylawn Rezoning. The request is to change the future land use map from single family to mixed use land use. The zoning case information is the case number for the zoning case is C14 2024-0122. The zoning request is to change the zoning on the property from SF3NP, which is Family Residence District Neighborhood Plan, to GOMUNP, which is General Office District Mixed Use Combining District Neighborhood Plan. Property owner applicant is Cherrylawn Circle Trust, dated March 11th, 2023. The agent is Nicole Mead from Hush Blackwell. Guidelines for group discussion. You can type in your questions at any time into the chat at any time during the meeting. After staff and applicant presentations, if you would like to speak, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak and ask questions during the Q&A of the meeting, and we will call out the last 4 digits of your phone number. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then we will open the floor for you to ask your questions. If you're having connection issues, as I mentioned earlier, you could turn off your video until it's cleared up. We ask that you be respectful to each other during this discussion. So again, the meeting will be posted to this website tomorrow morning. You can email me or Jonathan with any questions or comments that you have. You can provide written comments that will be included in the staff case reports when the cases are eventually scheduled for Planning Commission and City Council. If you live within 500 feet, you will get that notice in the mail when those public hearings are scheduled, and it will have the date, time, and location of the meeting, and also instructions on how to participate in the meetings, which are done virtually and in person. So why is there a plan amendment application? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. The city charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendments are changes to a future land use map, and most have an associated zoning application. This map shows the areas of the city that have city council approved neighborhood plans, and those are shown in blue. These planning areas have a plan document that has text that has the goals and recommendations of the planning area, and most of which also have a future land use map. And these maps show by color the land use of the planning areas, the land use on the properties in the planning area. For example, this property is single family, which is shown in the yellow. The proposed is mixed use, which is shown in brown. Some other colors you see on the map are purple, that shows industry, orange reflects multifamily, red commercial. This is a zoomed in portion of that map. As you see to the north, it is brown, and that is a mixed use land use. You see further to the left on the screen is orange, and that represents multifamily. You see the majority of the map shows on the screen yellow, which is single family, and that's what this current land use is on the property. This is an aerial photo that shows the property with the land use overlaid. A map that shows the zoning on the property. So you see to the north is a multifamily 3. Also to the north on the screen to the left is GRMU VCO, and that's community commercial mixed use VMU commercial overlay, conditional overlay neighborhood plan. And most of the property you see surrounding is SF3 zoning. This is a Google map screenshot of the property that shows some of the uses along Manor Road. This is the Imagine Austin Growth Concept Map, and these colors represent regional centers, town centers, neighborhood centers, and activity corridors. So this map shows the property in relation to the activities, centers, and corridors. It is not adjacent to or relatively near any of the activity centers, but it is near Manor Road, as you can see running north of it. That is designated as an activity corridor. You can also see Springdale Road to the right of the property. That is also designated as an Imagine Austin activity corridor. This map shows some public transportation that is adjacent to the property. Most of it seems to be running along Manor Road and some running along Loyola Lane. That ends my presentation, and as I mentioned earlier, Mackenzie will do the presentation. And you can share your screen at any time, Mackenzie.
Wonderful. Let me get that pulled up for you. Sharing my screen. Here we are. We'll get started. All right, thank you everybody for coming and joining us today. We really appreciate your participation. Just to reiterate some details, and thank you so much for that introduction, Maureen. We really appreciate it. I know a lot of this has already been gone over, but we do want to show the aerial map again and let you know that what we're hoping to do with this zoning and land use change is change these homes to hybrid office spaces. Here's another zoning map, just in case you want another look. Again, we have multifamily and mixed use in the vicinity. The proposed redevelopment will be converting these residential homes into hybrid office spaces. So what we're hoping to do is to keep the facade of the residential homes, make sure that they blend seamlessly into the neighborhood, and make sure that they look like homes. These residential homes will not be demolished. Most of the construction will take place in the interior of the home in order to convert them into more of an office space rather than a residential home. There will be 3 proposed offices with roughly 20 on-site employees. That's for all 3 properties. These are hybrid offices, so that means that a lot of these employees plan on working from home most days, but wanting a cozy, away from the busyness of downtown place to go when they do have to go into work and have more reliable internet connection, have meetings, things like that. The businesses that are planning on being tenants in these properties, there are 3 of them, and they are owned by the applicant. They focus on e-commerce and push notification. They are essentially tech companies focused on online marketing and phone and online analysts. Sorry, I got something stuck in my throat. Online analyzation for marketing for their clientele. So we have Pushnami, Digiprops, and Cint. All 3 companies essentially do very similar things. They are focused on e-commerce through push notifications, but they are tech companies with fully hybrid workforces that don't plan on having employees on site or all their employees on site all day, every day. In fact, few employees plan on coming to the office every day. They'll have a rotating schedule. It's more on site to be cozy and allow a place for the employees to go when they need a more business-like setting with a residential feel. So why Cherrylawn? Like I said before, the employees desire a hybrid office location with a residential feel. We want to move away from downtown and move into an office space that is smaller and cozier since there are limited employees and very limited employees that plan to be on site. Because of this, going into downtown is difficult for them, and a residential office is more desirable, especially for comfort and the fact that they are used to working from home. The other goal of this is to hopefully have employees that live in this neighborhood and have walkable access to their offices. Now here we have a photo of the neighborhood plan. And in the top right corner, you can see that Cherrylawn is highlighted with the big red star. The applicant, like we said before, would like to provide opportunities for employees to both move into this neighborhood and also have a workspace that is walkable to them. There's this increased desire for office space that is away from downtown in order to reduce traffic, especially for companies that have limited employees and limited on-site employees. Professional offices will have a residential feel. Like we said, the homes will not be destroyed. They are planning to use the facade of the homes while doing interior modifications. So the plan is for these offices to blend in with the neighborhood as homes and just be used as work from home offices. The interior construction will be more focused on creating a workplace, but the exterior will look very residential. And this is because we have an intent to maintain the neighborhood's overall look and feel. A gigantic skyscraper in the middle of this neighborhood just simply would not work. However, residential homes for a very small work from home office could work. We are hoping to maintain the neighborhood's look and keep away from the large urbanization that's happening downtown. Also, the walkability of these offices are very desirable, especially if the employees intend to move into this neighborhood and have nearby access to their offices. And it has nearby access to the main road of Manor Road, allowing quick and easy access to downtown. And here we are at my questions screen. I'll go ahead and stop sharing so that I can look at the chat and see you all. And I'll open up the floor for questions.
This is, sorry, one question. I'm on the phone. How do we indicate we want to ask a question if we're on the phone rather than the chat?
So,
Yeah, what I'm going to do is go through some of the chat questions, and then I'm going to go to each of the phone people on the phone, and then after we get done with the people raising their hands, I'm going to go down the list and ask alphabetically by first name if they have any questions that haven't been asked. That's generally how that kind of works. And this is just, there's a lot of people here. That might be the easiest way to get through this, because there's 25 people or so in the meeting. So, Elise, did you no longer have a question? No? Okay, Kyle.
I do have a question.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I do have questions.
Okay.
So you mentioned the internet reliability. If they're going to move into our neighborhood, I don't understand if they're walkable, how the internet reliability is going to be better.
That's more for if you were to go to your work office. As far as we're not sure exactly what the applicant plans to provide as far as internet access, but for their work businesses, they will probably have a higher bandwidth and better equipment than what you would regularly have if they're buying their own work from home office setups. So the idea is that these workspaces will be there for them to be able to use. They will have reliable internet, they'll have reliable phones, and they'll be clean, quiet workspaces for them to go to in case they have meetings or they really need to get work done.
Sure. Well,
Apologies
I
for
work from home
the
here in
direct
my,
interjection, but are you saying that
Okay,
there
one
will
person at a
not
time,
be
please.
other?
Please, one person at a time, so
trying-
we're not talking over each other. What was your response going to be, Mackenzie?
Oh, I'm sorry. Elise, could you repeat your second question just so that I could hear it again?
yeah, so sure. So I work from home here in my office. I totally understand, the need for quiet, safe, cozy office space. I'm also, another question is about the parking and traffic. We do already have a known speed issue on Walnut Hills, which I was informed of by the city when I asked them for a speed study last year around this time. They responded to me March this year. They do know that there is a speed issue, but we're like 184th in importance on dangerous streets. So they don't have any money to address that. We do have a lot of cars parked up and down the street constantly already. We do have traffic from the Catholic Church. We are right off Manor, and people love to careen around that corner. I watched a group of kids almost get run over on their bike. I watched a SUV flatten the speed limit sign on my curb. The police watched that happen too and did not respond. So we don't really have the infrastructure to address, I think, any issues that arise from extra traffic is one of the problems that I see with extra traffic coming in here.
Right, and I appreciate you bringing that up because I see several questions on parking in the chat and traffic. So as far as parking goes, we are hoping to use the garage spaces and driveway spaces as parking. The applicant will have to confirm that, but we're trying to minimize the amount of cars that will have to be parked on the street because of this. We're hoping to keep that to an absolute minimum. And as far as the speed issues, we have submitted a traffic worksheet for this site, which is essentially allows the city to evaluate the new development and what that effect is going to have on traffic in the area. We're waiting for the official word as to whether or not we need to do a neighborhood traffic analysis, but if we do, that would entail taking into account speeds, volume, street size, things like that. And the city may come back and give us traffic mitigation tactics in order to avoid traffic on the area. But for the most part, the applicant loves this neighborhood and does not want to fill it with traffic and fill it with parked cars. So they are focused on trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's something that I can definitely bring up in our meetings to follow.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, I'll just have one more comment if you don't mind.
Right.
Okay.
I did speak to Emerson directly, came by my house after I think his lawyer passed on my concerns about the traffic to him that I had sent into the Maureen.
Right.
He did tell me that he loves the neighborhood and that's why he wants to put his offices here. He also told me that he feels unsafe here, and I'm kind of having a problem understanding why offices. I don't think that's really the end goal here. I don't know why, if you feel unsafe here, you'd want to encourage your employees to live here and walk to offices here. He did tell me that he loves the neighborhood, but then that he feels unsafe and that he was thinking about gating off the cul-de-sac. But then came back with, well, I know that's not going to do anything for y'all, but trying to think of how to make it better. So something's just not quite adding up about that, and I am concerned about. I don't know that offices in this neighborhood are going to help anybody in this neighborhood except maybe the bottom line of the person using the offices or owning the offices, I should say.
Right.
Thank you,
And
Elise.
just on that comment, I'd like to add that part of the reason why we are pursuing these office spaces is because they are Emerson's businesses. And he is hoping to have his employees on site. We've had some trouble, or at least the applicant has had some trouble with having reliable and safe tenants on the property. So he was hoping that this business opportunity, or at least converting them to offices, would sort of relieve that issue. But I appreciate your comment and I will definitely pass that along.
Okay, what I'm going to do next is go to Kyle, Allison, then Kathleen. Then I'm going to go to the people on the phones, and then we'll do the questions in the chat. So that's the order I'm going to take this. So Kyle, would you make your comment or ask your question?
Yeah, my questions kind of mirror a lot of what I'm seeing in the neighborhood chat. Basically, parking is a primary concern, and also timeline and what prevents the applicant from changing their mind at any point in time. You know, is this opening a floodgate, and can they say, this is my intention, but then next month, next year, that intention becomes vastly different? You know, is there any, like, this is the plan now, but is this the plan just to get the okay, or is this the plan permanently? And yeah.
Right, and I appreciate that question. So what we're hoping to do, or at least what the applicant is hoping to do, is sort of keep the culture of the neighborhood. He wants to keep those residential houses up and thus convert them into office spaces. And the size and the area and the fact that it's located in a neighborhood will probably make it an unlikely site for there to be a gigantic office development later. It isn't a place that you would
I
put a
see.
skyscraper. So the hope is that by keeping the residential homes, by keeping them, by only doing construction with the interior and keeping the spacing the way that it is, that it will essentially prevent the growth that you're worried about. Like I said before, the applicant loves this neighborhood and would like to keep it as a neighborhood. So the idea is to blend these offices into the neighborhood rather than allow some other development to come in and create a skyscraper kind of situation.
But
Thank you.
there's no limit to changing intentions here, and or buying up the next property that goes for sale and the next one that goes for sale until contiguous pieces are owned. And I mean, I don't want to fearmonger. I love co-living. I love co-working spaces. I think they're great. But you know, if the intention changes, there could be, you know, he loves the neighborhood so much he buys the entire thing and we're domain 2.0.
Right. And the intention for right now is to keep the homes the way that they are and to hopefully not create domain 2.0. The size of the lots and the construction that we're doing now will most likely limit development in the future, or at least we are hoping, so that these houses continue to be attractive. And even if there are other tenants, they will use the homes and the workspaces that we've created, and that the size alone will limit the large development, at least for what is purchased for right now.
So
I wanted to also just chime in really quickly. I'm having some connectivity issues, so I've been keeping my camera off, but I'm Nikel Mead. I'm also one of the agents for the applicant. And I just wanted to say in response to, I think it was Kyle's question, that the applicant, Emerson, knows this is an out of the box request. He fully acknowledges and understands that. And so, you know, we want to have those dialogues about the parameters of what he's requesting. And absolutely, he has a willingness to put restrictions on the request to pin it down better to what he in particular is trying to do. Because we do realize that zoning is zoning, right? And so once you have that zoning on the map, there are a lot of things that can potentially come with that. And he's absolutely willing and ask us to convey that he's willing to enter into restrictive covenants with regard to restrictions on that rezoning, and also, to the extent we can, put those restrictions into the zoning ordinances.
thank you, Nikel. Now I'm going to go to next person who had their hand up is Allison. Would you ask your question, unmute and ask your question, and or make a comment? And then from there, I'm going to go to Kathleen.
Hi.
Kathleen, we're going to go to the phone and then to the questions, because the questions in the chat are starting to pile up.
Hi, my name's Allison Fisher. I am also one of the neighbors on Cherrylawn Circle. I had 3 questions, but one of them I think has been kind of adequately covered. I see it in the chat, and also that Kyle is bringing up that this mixed use zoning, I mean, this may be the plan for at this moment, but but what about the future? It sounds like there are plenty of, there are other zoning options in between single family and mixed use that he isn't exploring. But the questions that I have that I haven't noticed yet, so I'll go ahead and pose them, are, well, one, you made mention that he's had trouble getting a reliable tenant, which I find to be a very strange assertion, since one of the properties, the property on the corner nearest my house, is currently listed as an Airbnb, so which I believe is unlicensed. So that's kind of, it, number one, leads me to why would I believe any story if you're currently operating an Airbnb? And also, yeah, I guess you are having difficulty getting reliable tenants, and you are already changing the idea of the neighborhood if you're operating an Airbnb. My other question, though, is also, yeah, if I'm going to play along with this fairy tale that you're telling, what are the security plans? Particularly, I mean, presumably you would have, if this is an office space, you would have relatively 8 to 5 Monday through Friday hours. So what are the security requirements? What are the security plans for after hours for preventing this from becoming like an attractive nuisance after hours when we are in a residential area? You can feel free to respond to any of those three.
Perfect. I'll start with your Airbnb question, just because this is something that was brought up to the applicant before. As far as I know, the applicant is not running an Airbnb. The Airbnb in question is a property that is not owned by the applicant. It is on the cul-de-sac. It's been gotten confused with one of the houses that is a part of this 3-house cluster. However, the Airbnb is not owned by the applicant, and the Airbnb style isn't something that the applicant is interested in. What the applicant is interested in is a long-term sustainable tenant, and they're hoping to get this through the office space rather than what they've tried through a residential tenant before. Now for your next question, and will you remind me of your second question? I got a little lost in having to explain my answer, Allison.
Why are you going after a mixed use
Right.
zoning as opposed to any other of the slightly more restrictive zoning options that are, you know, somewhere in between mixed use and single family?
Right. So since we want to use these for office space, our options are general office and limited office. For general office, since these homes are already constructed, we are interested in their development standards as opposed to limited office. For general office, we're interested in the floor layout size, the impervious cover regulations, and just being able to have a little bit more room in the development for the houses that already sit there. But as far as what the applicant is looking to do with the site, we're trying to find the best zoning for the site. As of right now, this is what works for both the office use and the development. But we can look into the other zoning definitions and give you an explanation as to why we're not using the other ones, if there are specific ones that you're concerned about or you think that we've overlooked.
So next, before we go to the phone and then the chat,
Oh, and
Kathleen,
my
you
third
had your,
question was regarding after hour security.
that's
Oh,
right.
and after hour security, yes. So the applicant doesn't have an official plan for after hour security, but that is something that is at the forefront of his mind. We definitely want to make sure that these homes do not become an attractive nuisance at night. And since they are residential, we want to keep them quiet at all times. So there will be a security plan, but we'll have to talk to the applicant as to what exactly is the best security plan for these homes. We're still early into the development plans. So once we get that rolling, security will be at the top of the list that needs to be covered.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen, would you unmute Kathleen
Yes, hi.
Tully?
Yeah, just Tull. Tull. Yeah, my question was about some of the things that you actually covered in the last question, but I'm now very confused because my house is literally next door to the house that Emerson used to reside in before he moved to West Austin. And it is an Airbnb. It's an active Airbnb. I've met the tenants. I've seen the listing online. You know, and I believe the other house, the one on the very corner that's got the pink trim, 6108, is also, as of a month or two ago, was actively listed on Airbnb. So that part of what you're saying, Mackenzie, is just not true. And I've witnessed it myself, and I think I have photos of the listing.
Okay, we'll check
I
in
just
with
want to
the
state that
applicant.
so that all the neighbors are aware that they're not getting the right information.
Okay, and I'll talk to the applicant as far as how he's doing his rentals. As we discussed before, they have been trying to rent out tenants, or long-term tenants. So as far as what websites he's using, I'll make sure to check in with that. And if we are concerned about the Airbnb setup, I can also talk to the applicant, about how he's using the houses now and how we want to use them going forward.
Can
Okay.
chime in on that as well. A neighbor did send a question to city staff a week ago or so about this Airbnb. So I specifically asked the applicant, asked Emerson, whether this was his Airbnb. It is not. It's the one that this particular neighbor was complaining about is at 6100 Cherrylawn Circle. We do not own that property. Don't have anything to do with it. But in addition to that, I think that was Kathleen, your question. I was real direct with him and said, are any of your houses listed on Airbnb? And he said they were not. So honestly, if you know that they are, I would like for you to send me that information, because we had a real frank discussion about whether any of his homes were listed on Airbnb and could have been confused with this one. And he said they're not.
Okay, well, I would just like to respond to that, since 6100 is my home. I have rented that house. I have signed a 6-month lease, not through Airbnb, with a tenant for this summer. It is listed on Airbnb, but all of the dates have been blocked off. And it was only recently listed prior to me finding this one tenant who's a single tenant who lives there. So he found the house through Airbnb, but then we went outside of Airbnb to rent it, and it's a long-term rental. It's not a short-term rental. I do have no intention of renting that house short-term. In fact, I'll be moving back in December and remaining there.
Yeah, and I think people say Airbnb just generally.
Yeah,
so sorry
I mean,
about saying
it was
Airbnb
listed,
specifically.
but it's not a short-term rental. I have a 6-month long tenant who's from Dallas who's living there. A single guy in his 50s. So I'm not sure what the complaint was about, but I'll definitely look into it. And again, I have no intentions of renting that house short term. It's just because I go away and do movies sometimes where I'm gone for 6 months to a year. So having a long-term tenant in the house makes sense to me, but keeping my furniture. So that's my plan. And I'm happy to, I'll find the photographs I took of Emerson's listing when it was on Airbnb. I haven't checked in a few months. He may have taken it off of Airbnb, but it definitely was listed along with at least one of the other houses as an Airbnb. And when I lived there earlier this year, I mean, there were tenants coming and going all the time, big groups of like college age people.
Okay. Now
let's connect and definitely talk about that. Sorry, Mark.
I'm going to go to no, it's okay. There's a lot of folks here, lots of questions, and we have about, doing a time check. It's 6:40 and we're ending at 7:30. So we have about 50 minutes. So I want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity. So with the individual with the phone number ending in 3160, do you have a question or comment?
I do not. Thank you.
And who about the person whose phone ends in 1156? Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
My name is Jeff Hill. I'm one of the neighbors on Cherrylawn Circle. And one of my first questions is that if the original intention of making mixed use office spaces was what was the intention of this purchaser. There is a property at 5722. There's a property at 5730 on Manor. There's also a full office building at 6600 Manor, why not go to those locations to set up an office? Because these are on the business strip, not tucked back into the residential area. So that is one question. Secondarily, this is a question more to, I think, the city representative, not the purchaser's representative. But if this is rezoned to mixed use, what assurances do the residential people have here that they're not going to, once, like in a year, and this goes back to some of the other questions that have already been asked, but within a year's time or 2 years' time, that these properties are not going to be completely redone, that are essentially antithetical to what the purchaser's current representatives are saying. They want to keep everything cool and residential, but as soon as they are rezoned, they're rezoned, right? So how much assurance can the city give us as the neighbors that in 2 years' time, this isn't going to blow up into something else?
Well, all I can say into that regard is once zoning is passed, I'm not talking about the site in general, and the person's property has what we call entitlements, they can do whatever that's allowed under that zoning.
But I think I can speak for most everyone else on the phone. For the record, I think I can speak for most everyone else on the phone that due to that fact, because that is what all of us are here on the phone recognizing, that none of us sign up for that. None of us are okay with that.
I did want to bring up two things to that point. Okay, 2 things to the point. There are zoning tools called conditional overlays, which could limit the stuff that you can do on a property. You can eliminate certain types of uses, make them prohibited, or make the use, if one wants to do a certain use, they have to go to the planning commission and get special permission to do that use, called a conditional use.
So what is it?
And as Nikhil mentioned a little bit ago, there's something called a restrictive covenant that I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to pretend to speak to the details of that.
Okay, but I think this is pretty much the core point that most of the people on the phone, most of the people in this area are concerned with. What is it that we can do to make sure that, I mean, the purchaser's current ideas of keeping them as residential buildings and just kind of remodeling the interior doesn't sound super crazy. What we're all concerned with is that it's going to, as soon as this guy is done with it, that he's just going to sell it to somebody else who doesn't give a crap and turn it into skyscrapers, just like the current purchaser's representatives are giving heed to. So you're saying that there are conditional restrictions that we can apply for, or that can be put onto the property and the use of the property. What is it that we, as the representatives of the neighborhood, need to know and do in order to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Well, ultimately, it's the city council who approves the zoning, and they will, if it's their pleasure, they would approve a conditional overlay. I would recommend at this point that the neighborhood speak with the consultant, the property owner's agent, and have that conversation. Because ultimately, it's going to be an agreement in principle between the community and the property owner.
Yeah, that's right.
So
And
do
this
this.
is
So hold on. Let me understand this correctly. You're saying do this conversation over again.
I'm saying have a conversation with the the property owner's representative, and and come to some agreements if you can. I'm not saying that it's a guarantee that you're going to, but have that conversation and see where it leads. And I think that would be a next step.
Okay, so what I understand from what you were saying is that the city will offer zero guarantees.
Well, if a person's zoning is their zoning,
so let me
there's
express
nothing
what
that
I'm
the city can do to
understanding to
stop
you,
it.
please. Let me express to you what I am understanding, and then correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Fair enough.
What I am hearing from you is that the city will offer no guarantees of any future use, and that any sort of guarantees of future use are only at the express permission of the current owner of the properties. And if we go along with it, with this future rezoning and redevelopment, then maybe there are some guarantees there if the current owner agrees to them. That's what you're saying, correct?
Maybe what I'm going to say is what I said is that the property has the entitlements. It has the uses, the building setbacks, the building heights, all the things that are governed by our zoning code. And then once an ordinance is passed, that property owner is entitled to the rights and privileges that are expressly written into that ordinance and otherwise in the land development code in chapter 25.2.
But that is simply what you just expressed, what you just detailed is simply the building code of the structure,
the land
itself.
development code, the zoning code.
It is not saying in terms of height and things like that what it can be used for. That is just the building code.
That is the zoning code. And that talks to with the uses and what they call dimensional standards, which tells you how high you can build a building, how much impervious cover, so forth and so on, and how much building can cover the site. So I know we have a lot of people, a lot of questions, so I'm going to move on to the next person because we have a lot of questions, and we can try to come back to this. I think
there was another question before that. There was another question before I put to you as the city representative as to why this developer, this person, didn't purchase properties that are along the Manor Strip at 5722, 5730, 6600 that are actually currently along the business strip. Why can't they go to those locations instead of these locations that are back in the residential neighborhood?
I don't know. I can't tell you why they did it. Partly perhaps because they
I
own
didn't
this
ask
property.
you that. I am asking
I
them
can't.
that.
I can answer. I can take over here,
you.
Mark. So like Mark said, we do not own those properties. The applicant does at the current time have the properties that we are looking at today. But on top of that, it isn't just about that. It is also about the fact that These are the applicant's businesses, and he is hoping to provide a residential work from home space for these employees. The employees have expressed a desire that when they do have to do their work from office days, that it is in a comfortable location, that is quiet, that is reliable, and has the amenities of a home rather than the amenities of a large business. So what they're looking for, what the employees are looking for, is what the residential homes are providing, which is why the applicant hasn't gone to look at a more commercial, large-scale rental of an office space, because it's just simply not what his
And
employees
that
are
makes
looking
sense.
for.
That makes sense
These,
when you're talking about the 6600 property, but it's 5722 and 5730. These are residential homes that are along the Manor Strip. They are right off of the Manor roadway and directly adjacent to them on both sides of those properties. There are currently commercial activities going.
yes.
And all I'm saying is that it sounds to me like this person came in, found houses that they like at a better price, and is now trying to leverage that purchase of property into making a different economical thing for them. Good for them. Great. I'm glad that they're trying to be entrepreneurial. However, that sounds to me very much like someone that is trying to come in who doesn't actually care about the neighborhood, but is actually trying to just leverage whatever property they can get a hold of and turn it into a commercial property. When there are other commercial properties, like literally within walking distance, just like you said they wanted, but they didn't purchase those properties.
Okay, I think we get the point now. Could you please let Mackenzie answer this so we can move on to some other folks? Because we have a lot of questions still to get to.
So I think the history of these properties is important to take into context. The applicant has owned these properties for a long time. He has attempted to have long-term tenants and use them as residential rental properties. Now we're hoping to use them to accommodate for the businesses that he owns. And as far as the properties across the street from Manor, we don't have that financial breakdown as far as what benefit they would have to the applicant, if any. These residential properties are owned by the applicant in a neighborhood that he enjoys, that he used to live in, and he's held on to these properties for a long time. Now he's hoping to create something good with them that would be safe for the community and also keep the residential feel of the neighborhood.
Thank you. We're going to go on now to the individual with the phone number with 7906 is the last four digits. Do you have a question or comment that hasn't been touched on yet? Hearing none, I'm going to go into the next person with the phone. The individual with its phone number that ends in 6789. Do you have a question or comment that hasn't been touched upon yet?
Yes, this is Ian Howe. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ian.
Again, I'm here in my personal capacity. I'm a city employee, but in my personal capacity. I will be efficient with my questions. Question one, is it true that the applicant owns another property on that same cul-de-sac? That's my understanding from TCAD that that's true.
Are you speaking to the three properties that we're discussing or an extra property?
This is key. I mean, I can focus on the three if you don't want to talk about the fourth property in TCAD that looks like he owns.
I'm just wondering, Nikhil, do you happen to know if there is a fourth property that he owns?
And that's, I'm just going to raise that.
Yeah,
I guess we don't need, everyone can look at TCAD. We don't need to talk about that. I won't waste more time.
Yeah, he owns one other residential property on the street, but it's not contiguous to these and it's not part of the zoning case.
Okay. All right. I think everyone on the phone. So, well, I'll touch on that a second. What about emergency response vehicles? So this neighborhood, we have lots of issues with tree fall, cutting powers off, people having to get in our backyards, below poles. So how, if they're coming on Manor, you've got the three businesses, you say there's gonna be 20 people, there's no guarantee going forward. We all are hearing that it could be anything going forward. I think that, what about emergency response to both the buildings on the cul-de-sac and the back of the lots of the houses that might need to cut through, because that's a hill How is that going to work?
Is your concern about the traffic, volume of cars, or just the accessibility for emergency services to get to these homes?
Accessibility, that's both. That is accessibility of emergency services to the cul-de-sac in light of increased traffic on the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So I would flag that.
Right. So we are hoping to keep the increased traffic to a minimum. The applicant wants to keep cars from being parked on the side of the road. There should be no cars parked in the cul-de-sac. Most of the traffic should stay on Walnut Drive rather than the back of Cherrylawn. So as far as emergency services, for what the applicant is hoping to create is minimal traffic, if any. There should be no disruption of emergency service accessible to these houses. And Nicole, I saw that you were trying to say something.
No, I was not. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, no problem. No problem.
Okay, then I have a quick question.
Okay.
Just to summarize for everyone. This is basically to the city. The city. So they've made this proposal. They've got this proposal on the line. I think that people, if it's what it is, people don't have a huge problem. So you talk about a conditional overlay. If the city and the applicant do not reach some agreement, is the default on the city end that this will be approved as the applicant applies for it? Like,
No.
basically, is this on the city, or will you guys do review? Because I think everyone, I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but certainly for me, like the GO 60-foot zoning is completely inappropriate, even the applicant amends it. So is there stuff that on the city's end, like, is it completely up to the neighborhood to do all the work, negotiate with them, or will you guys have limiting reviews for appropriateness on your end that you will do also?
I can speak to that. The zoning staff will meet to discuss this case, and they'll develop a recommendation based on their professional opinion and the context, and they have a series of decision points that they go through. For our part, where we'll do the future land use map, similar process. We'll meet, we'll discuss it, and we'll make a recommendation. And that was what we'll bring forward to first the Planning Commission. And if the Planning Commission makes a recommendation separate from the staff recommendation, we'll include both of those in our staff recommendation to the City Council.
Okay, so in sum, it's a two-prong thing. You guys will be doing your own review, and the neighborhoods can be working with the applicant on a separate agreement about appropriate uses. Is that right? Am I summarizing that correctly?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on.
Okay.
Someone else.
Okay. We got some questions way back from the beginning of the meeting, so I'm going to go through these very quickly. We've touched on some of these, but I'm going to read them out so people know that I've actually looked at them. This is from Coleman Stevenson. What searches of existing office parks were done before this? I think we've addressed that. The property owner owns these properties, and that's why they are choosing to take the route of the rezoning.
But Mark, I just want to, this is Nicole. I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to say one thing in response to that question. I was going to put it in the chat, but I didn't know if that was effective. The idea, and as I said, we know this is an out of the box request, but the idea is that these employees don't want to be in an office building on a commercial street. Like, they're trying to create something different and unique as a workspace. We know that there need to be a lot of restraints and constraints and restrictions around that. And we do want to work with the neighbors to see if there's something that can be palatable. And it is absolutely the case. I think that was maybe Michael's question earlier, that we can and we will work with you guys to put covenants in place that the folks on Cherrylawn can enforce, and to put restrictions in the zoning ordinance if we are able to get to some place where we can come to agreement on it. I just wanted to say that, but the idea is that we don't want to get a random office building and move into it. We want something different.
Does that include restrictions on resale of the property for different potential commercial use?
Whereas I don't think any property owner would say, I'm not going to resell my property. I don't think that's what you're asking. I think you're saying, would we be willing to restrict users that aren't these office users at this property? And the answer to that is yes.
Coleman's got a question about What stops the plan from changing? Well, I think we've addressed that.
We've covered that. That's fine.
Yeah. What future plans does the applicant have for other properties that are owned? I don't on Cherrylawn and close by. I don't know. That's touched on that. So then I'm going to go to Becca. The zoning changes. How do we have any confidence that it doesn't open the door for higher density office buildings in the future? I think there are other regulations because this is surrounded by single family that would restrict the height of the buildings. Even though those rules have changed, I think this is surrounded enough by other single family uses that the compatibility standards would still be in effect, to the point where you might have a 5x5 point that can go up to 60 feet maybe, but it's going to be strongly limited because of the zoning. Are all the company list? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add to that, Mark, just to reiterate that the applicant is interested in putting restrictions, whether through a restrictive covenant or a zoning ordinance, or in the zoning ordinance itself. So that is something that the applicant is interested in, is limiting this property to make sure that something doesn't create a monstrosity later. He is interested in having written restrictions so that this doesn't happen. I just wanted to reiterate that since that's come up a lot.
I'm sorry, Ian, how I hate to jump in. How do we connect with the applicant as a neighborhood to do that, to get that process going?
You can connect through us. We are happy to pass along any questions or any concerns and sort of facilitate an open dialogue with the applicant and the neighborhood, if that's something that you're interested in.
For those of us on the phone, can you repeat your contact information?
Yes.
I really only have one question left that I'd love to get to.
Okay, just go for it. But because there's still like a lot of questions in the chat, so make it really quick, please.
But it's the next one on your list.
Okay. Are all the companies listed still incorporated and active?
Yeah. As far as I can tell, these are not like full companies. And I'd also like to understand the applicant's relationship to Modern Business Solutions, if any.
Right, and that's something that I'll have to check with the applicant about, just because I did not help him with the business transactions. I don't know the full detail of the business transaction, or of the businesses entirely. Nikhil, do you happen to know the structure of the businesses, if they're fully incorporated or not?
I've never looked to see how they're registered with the Secretary of State. That's easy to find out. I'm happy to find that out.
One looks dissolved.
I mean, they're all.
Another one's expired or something like that. I forget the term that was used on the site. But the only one that I understand that's actually an active business is Pushnami, and I have no. I'm in similar tech, and I question the ability for these companies to actually like generate enough business to be in these properties. It seems like a holding place, right? Like the amount of employees you would have at these companies doesn't match like what is said in the information sheet as to how many people would be employed and coming here on a daily basis. Just doesn't add up, especially if one of the companies just doesn't even exist.
Well, we can definitely get with the applicant and pass along some information about each business, at least in detail, to the neighbors, so that we have that information for you guys. We can look it up on the Texas Secretary of State website for y'all to see. We'll do a little bit more detailed digging and get that to you guys. Yeah, if you have any specific questions about the business, please let us know.
Yeah, and just one other something I was unable to determine, maybe you could ask the applicant, is whether or not he was previously employed with Modern Business Solutions in town. I think that'd be really important for this group in this neighborhood to know if he was part of that organization or not. It's hard to tell based on the information that's out there. So.
Yeah, and you guys, I'm so sorry I'm having these tech issues, but Emerson, I think, was one of the owners of Modern Business Solutions, but that business does not exist anymore. I think it closed 7
after
to 10
a huge data
ago.
breach of 58 million users' data was lost in a breach on a embarrassing security breach on that company. So that's the level of business that we're talking about bringing in to here, and I'd like the applicant to have a chance to like respond to that and sort of say the kind of businesses that he's running that are be moving in.
Yeah, and I think the other, you asked about the other 3 businesses. Pushnami is his primary business. The other two businesses he basically salvaged because he bought those businesses from others who were kind of running them into the ground and revived them. And all three of those businesses are active and operating. As I said, I don't know what you're seeing on the Secretary of State site, but we can get that information and get it to you. And again, too, I just want to say this is one discussion of many that we hope to have with this group. And so we'll have, if one of the topics you guys want to have is having Emerson talk about those businesses and what those business operations really look like, we need to do that, and we will do that. We're happy to have him come talk to everybody.
Yeah, as a resident, I'd really appreciate that. That'd go a long way. So thank you.
Yep, for sure.
The next question is from Betsy Nitch, and
you've passed by Shirley's hand a few times. Can you address her before you go back to the chat, because those questions
sure.
are available.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay, Shirley. You ask your question or make your comment if you haven't.
Give her a moment to unmute, please.
Okay. Because I can't unmute her on my.
She says she can't get unmuted.
Okay.
Or is someone managing that?
I can't unmute it from my end. I cannot.
I can't unmute it either. I'm looking at my choices here. I can lower hand, pin it, spotlight, make an attendee, or remove from meeting. It doesn't show that I can unmute her.
Okay. If you could put the question in the chat, or if you know
Shirley,
somebody,
you need to rejoin and then it will fix itself. You would have to rejoin and then she can unmute.
Leave and then rejoin. Yeah, that's probably it.
She was talking earlier too, so.
Okay. I think the next question is from Betsy. How can I guarantee that they won't immediately sell the property? There is no guarantee, but I think
covered that. But you can skip to my other question. I was looking into their properties on TCAD. I was a little confused because they have homestead exemptions on all of these properties, these 3 properties that they don't live in. And they also have a homestead exemption on the property that they do live in West Austin. And I guess I just wondered about the legality of that. If it's legal, I would love to get in on that game, but as far as I know, it's illegal. And the Texas Comptroller's website says you can only have one property homestead exemption, and it needs to be your residence.
Thank you, Betsy. You will get your Mackenzie.
I can answer to that. So that is something that we can check in with the applicant about, just to see what exactly he has homesteaded. But what you're likely seeing on TCAD might be old homestead exemptions from when he is buying these homes, homesteading them, and then losing the exemption as he moves on. But I am not a tax lawyer, so that is something that I will have to dig in a little bit more and give you detail once we do a follow-up. But
I mean, it looks like it's pretty current to me on TCAD. Usually when you move and you let them know that's no longer your residence, it falls off in the next tax year. There might be some overlap, between like 2023, 2022. But I mean, he's on these properties for 4 years. There shouldn't be homesteads on 4 properties. So that's tax fraud.
I'll look into it.
Okay, thank you. Will there be any modifications to the height of the buildings?
Now.
Okay. Welcome to the meeting. Can you ask your question or make your comment?
Yes, my comment, first of all, I just want to say that I am a resident at 6105 Cherrylawn Circle directly. I've been here 29 years. I do know Emerson and Claire. I know the 3 kids. I also know that under the circumstances, we were told, my neighbors, Sue and Kirk Hosman, they moved to California. They've been living in their house over 40-something years. She said Emerson approached them to buy the house for the in-laws that were moving down here. That was the same thing they told me as well. So the purchase of 6106 was for the in-laws. The other house we didn't find out about until just recently, that he has 4 houses on our block. Now, my understanding, and Katie Toll can attest to this, he's trying to buy her house as well. That's directly next door to him. So if he only needs those 3 houses for office spaces, why is he trying to purchase Katie Toll's house? He's trying to purchase Miss Hutchison's house on the backside of Walnut Street. I guess I'm getting kind of confused because he told Miss Hutchison he's going to put duplexes on the lot when he purchases them. So we're getting 3 different stories. He told us he was going to do a family compound on the circle. Sue and Kirk sold him the house under that impression. Those are 2 UT professors. They are highly upset right now, and they're on top of this right now as well, because they would have not sold the house had they have known that he was going to try something like this. Yes, he said he loves the neighborhood. If he loves the neighborhood so much, why would he say that he felt unsafe here? And he goes and buys a $6 million house over in Shoal Creek on Gaston Lane. If that's the case, why would you decide to come up here now? This is a small street. You can come up in this circle. These houses are custom built homes. They're custom built homes. The guy that built LBJ High School built these homes. All these homes have been owned by very prestigious people, doctors, NFL football players, Black ownership. So I'm not understanding. No, they have not been here that long. They didn't even say bye. They didn't even tell us they moved. We got 3 neighbors on this call right now that we didn't even know they had moved. We kept asking what happened, where'd they go, where'd they go? Then we find out, we have to Google and find out why they moved. And he shows up a year later to just come and say, hey, I'm building some offices, and I just want you to know I'm not tearing down the houses. That's not the point of tearing down the houses, guys. This is a neighborhood. I watch the little kids walk across the street, cross Main Road, they go up Walnut Hills. That house on the corner, you want to turn that house, when you turn now, he has 3 people in that house right now on a lease. When you turn now, we have to wait for somebody else to turn in. The neighbor across from him, we can't even get our car in. And that's just 3 houses right at 6108. He owns 6106, 6102, 6108. He owns 4 houses. The house when he was Airbnb in 6102. So I don't know what you guys are saying. We know this. There's 2 pools. There's 2 pools with 6106 and 6108. They got a pickleball court. They got a basketball court that he's put back there. Yes, I'm sure your employees want to come and be cozy in a neighborhood, but this is our neighborhood, guys. This is our neighborhood. We've been here. A lot of us have been here for years, not just coming in on 3 to 4 years and buying up all the property and telling people false lies that you want a family compound and you love it. You love it so much that you go. He just asked, what's the young lady's name? Elise, about her house. He said, I buy distressed houses. So if you buy distressed houses, your purpose, his purpose, you can look online, ma'am. You need to do your homework. His company is supposed to do 100 million this year. I just watched the interview of him last night on a podcast. He made $60 million last year. He's positioned to make 100 million this year on Pushnami. So guess what? The interview also said, all my employees work from home. My employees do not have to come in. He said he did a study and he talked to 2 CEOs. He talked to 2 CEOs that told him trying to get him back in the office does not work. He says it on the thing. He says, I have a 5,000 square foot office on North Lamar, not downtown. On North Lamar is where Pushnami was. And he says that he got there one day in December of 2023, and there was only 2 employees. And he decided that, you know what, this is not working. And the employees didn't want to come in. So my thing is it really office spaces? If you're buying all these extra houses, is it really office space, guys? Or is it for duplexes? It's not office spaces. I can tell you now. I can pull up the video and send it out to everybody. It says, as of this year, the interview was February 2nd, 2022. The guy that's interviewing on podcast says, he said, my employees, I talked to 2 CEOs, working from home is it. That's remote. He said, my employees, as of this year, work remote. They no longer have to report to the office. So now they want to report to the office because they want to be cozy and come up in the neighborhood and play some pickleball and play basketball. That it gets loud over there, guys, when those the pools are right together. This is not, I think this is just going to be a fun place for your employees to feel cozy. That's the word you use, cozy. And you saying, hopefully, you say you hope to maintain. I heard what you said, Mackenzie. You said you hope to maintain. I wrote it down, but you can't hope to maintain when you're in a neighborhood with kids and families. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to us. Manor Road is up the street. If you want an office, you can go up on Manor Road. These homes are homes that were built, and we're trying to find all the deeds and everything. We got people working on this, guys. Judge McKenzie lived right down the street in Katie Toll's house, Judge Perkins. We got Judge Perkins. We're getting people involved on this. We're not going to lay down and let a 44-year-old millionaire, and he is a millionaire. He's a millionaire. Do your homework. Google. You'll see. He's a millionaire. Oh, only 60 million last year, but he's projected to make 100 million. So guess what? These employees, you said it's going to be 2 to 6 coming in. No, it's going to be more than that. If you're projected to do 100 million, you're getting more employees in there. And it's not fair to us for you guys to sit and try to bring in a company in a neighborhood. The neighborhoods are disappearing as it is. Why would they want to do that? With all these school kids walking up and down in here, we don't know his employees. So is that why he's asking everybody to buy up the houses? So now he can buy houses for the employees? Somebody needs to stop and look into all this and find out what's really going on. You said, oh, he's owned these houses. No, he didn't own these houses. We've owned our houses 29, 30 years. Kirk and them, over almost 50 years. Dr. Jeffrey James next door. I mean, this is not right. And I'm not going to sit back here and just continue to let everybody pity pat around it because I'm involved in this, and it just goes, yes, it's my circle now, but when you got $60 million that you can just go and buy property that you want, it's not fair. Y'all help him find a location somewhere else because we don't want your employees over here having fun and playing pickleball because they want a cozy area that they don't want to be downtown. You're not even downtown. You're on North Lamar. Come on, guys. Do your homework. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get upset, but I live here. And when I back out of my driveway, guess what? I have to make sure that I wait before 6106 can back out. And when they park on the side, I have to move and be careful when I'm backing out. So now you're talking about offices? It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And I'll go to Cheryl Cole. I'll go to the governor. We'll keep going as far as we have to go to fight this. So it's not going to be an easy lay down here. We're not doing that. We're not going to do it. So I've said all I have to say because nobody's thinking about the school children. Nobody's thinking about any of that. You bring in employees. We don't know these employees. Do we know their records? You told me they're going to park on Walnut Hill going up the street. That's where all the school kids walk. We got 2 churches. We got schools. We got nurseries in this neighborhood. There's plenty of office spaces. There's plenty of office spaces. Yeah, you put money into these homes, but you were putting it in there for a reason. And it's not fair for you to now come and tell your neighbors that you moved and didn't say nothing, didn't say bye, didn't say anything, but now you're back and saying, oh, I want to turn them into office spaces. No, there's something bigger than that because you wouldn't be wanting Katie's house. Why do you want Katie's house next door? Katie's on the line. She'll tell you. Katie Toll's on the line. He's offered her so much money to buy a house. She keeps telling me she don't want to sell it. He asked Miss Hutchison on the backside. She said they've come. He actually came with a cashier's check for her. And she said, Emerson, I don't want to sell my house. What are you going to do with it, Emerson? I've talked to the lady 3 times. He said, I'm going to put small duplex lots on there. Because see, there's other stuff going on here that you guys probably don't know about or does not want to share. So,
okay, thank you, Shirley.
Shirley, if I could just jump in real quick. He has told me through his realtor repeatedly, this is Katie at 6100, which is the house that's between 2 of the houses he owns. He's told me repeatedly that he wants to buy my house because they want to bring their aging relative here from Georgia. That's what the story is. And I've been out of town because that's why my house is rented out right now. I've been out of town for months. And when his realtor called me literally last week, I asked her, what's this deal about rezoning? My neighbors are saying there's some kind of notification. She said, oh, I don't know what that's about, but I know that Emerson and Claire really still want to buy your house. And I said, so is it the family plan? And she kind of glossed over it like she had no idea anything about the rezoning because she knows thinks I'm out of the loop. So, it's disconcerting to say the least.
Yeah, it's not in good faith, Mackenzie. Something's going on here because he told us that he wanted to bring his in-laws down there for their house. Her sister was living in one. Now that's no longer the case. Now it's the whole thing has flipped. He didn't have to purchase all these houses. You know, well, y'all applicant, oh, he wants to, it's his house. He didn't have to buy them all. He can sell them. These houses will sell up in here. Trust me, they will sell. He didn't have to buy them all. There's a genuine plan to come in and ruin neighborhoods. And we keep buying into it as the city council and everybody else sits back and just allows this to happen.
Okay,
And we
I'm
look
gonna
up
have
and
to
we
step
got
in here.
built
Shirley,
it
I
up.
know you're very passionate about this.
I'm
I
past
respect
passionate.
that. Okay, but we
I'm
only
done.
have 10
I'm
minutes
done.
left.
I'm done.
Okay, okay. Thank you for your comments. We only have 2 people left with questions. We have 10 minutes
Can I
left, so yes,
could I
Mackenzie.
respond to that, Mark?
Yes.
Just in summary, and one, thank you. I appreciate you all bringing these concerns to our attention. I would like to reiterate that the point of these meetings is for us to understand what you are concerned about and what we need to change in the plan going forward before it comes official. So the reason that we are talking in hopefullys, or we'll talk to the applicant, or we'll see next time, is because we are very early. What we're asking for is to change the maps so that we may do this project. We're very early in the project and we want to hear the neighborhood's concerns before we start making large grand plans. So we appreciate you here voicing your concerns, but there is no grand conspiracy or trying to pull the wool over your eyes. What we're trying to do here is work with you, and what we're concerned about are these 3 properties that the applicant already owns, has tried to rent out, hasn't been able to either have reliable tenants for a long time, or is unhappy with the way that the tenants have left the property after the fact, and is now looking to bring his small businesses to work out of these residential spaces. Like you said, a lot of these employees do work from home, but there are some employees who must come in 1 day a week, 2 days a week to do meetings, who have kids, who need to get away from their home environments for just an hour,
That
2 hours, or a
sounds
couple of
that
hours.
sounds great.
So
But if you actually want to make sure that the people in this neighborhood believe you, you must make sure that any conditions on the rezoning of these properties come with the conditions that it cannot go beyond the quote unquote modest remodifications that you are proposing.
Right, and we've discussed
There's still people who haven't had an opportunity to ask a question, sir. So I'm going to go to them, and if we have any time left on the back end, we can come back to you. But in all fairness, I want to get everybody who's been keeping their hands raised and patiently waiting to have their opportunity. So, Michael Turner, do you have a question or comment that hasn't been brought up yet that you would like to make or ask?
Yes. Can a conditional overlay or any other promise made to restrict things that we have expressed concern about, can conditional overlays be overturned either by the applicant or any future applicant?
No. The only body that can change the terms of zoning, which a conditional overlay is a term of zoning, would be the city council. And that would take a vote. It'd have to go through the process. It is a change in zoning, just like going from zoning A to zoning B. Changing a conditional overlay is just like that. There's no difference.
Then we're not okay with it. Then we're not okay with it.
And I understand your feelings about this, but Michael, did you get your question answered?
I think the answer to my question is yes, it can be overturned through a process.
It can be changed.
But conditional.
Yes.
Okay, it's when thank you for providing that clarification.
Okay. So Elise, do you have a question or comment that hasn't been asked or made as of yet?
I was going to retouch on some things, but I would like to just point out that these houses in the Cherrylawn cul-de-sac are actually really special, and it would actually be a shame to put like a mixed use development there. I am for mixed use. I lived in the Bay Area for 15 years. I came back here because I can't afford it. I'm a Texan. I came back to my home state. I love mixed use. I love transit. I want that for this city badly, desperately, dearly, right? But I don't think that Cherrylawn is the place for it. This is the neighborhood. Like others have said, Manor is right there. Manor needs to be revitalized. How is this going to benefit our neighborhood and our city? Office space doesn't benefit us. Homes would benefit us, but why those? Because those are actually beautiful architect designed homes. I would just cry if I saw them replaced with like cookie cutter duplex. They're beautiful. Like walk down the street and see how they are.
And because the homes are so special, that is why we're wanting to use the home facades and the actual construction of the homes
can I
for the
respond to that
offices.
quickly? Because this has been touched on, but we are all aware, or many of us are aware, that Emerson has been aggressively trying to buy up the adjacent properties. So why? What is the actual end goal here? That's my question.
I cannot speak to the applicant's goal for every property that he intends to purchase, but I will remind you that the applicant is an investor. As far as for these 3 properties, this was not the original vision for these properties. The original vision for these properties were as family homes, which then changed to renting tenants, which has now changed into something else, in which we're trying to make it fit in the neighborhood to which it can both benefit the applicant and the neighborhood. As far as the other homes, what the applicant intends to do with the other homes. He has not expressed wanting to do office space there, but I'm not sure. I can't speak to it, but I can ask him and have him give you an explanation as to why he has an interest in buying more homes in the neighborhood. But they are not part of this zoning case, and as far as we know, there is not a plan to add them in.
And how does the office space benefit the neighborhood? How does the office space benefit anyone except Emerson?
Exactly.
And maybe his employees for having a luxurious, pool and pickleball court to play on while they're working.
We understand that. And
can I have a job? Because I can walk over there.
Sure. I can't speak to that. But like Nikhil had said, we do understand that this is a strange request. It is hard to say that, oh, you guys are going to benefit so great from, these wonderful office buildings that are near you. But the idea is that what we're trying to do with these properties is make sure that they blend into the neighborhood, make sure that they keep their residential feel, and make sure that they are used in a safe way that is controlled by the applicant. The applicant is trying to make sure that these properties are maintained and used by few people that are professionals and that he can trust to be in these homes. The interest is to hopefully use the space that was otherwise being used as short-term to long-term rentals to now be used by something that is a little bit more consistent. So as far as a benefit to the neighborhood as a whole, that is hard to articulate, but we are hoping that you see a benefit in keeping the facades, keeping the residential feel while still allowing a little bit of a mixed use with restrictions. So that the neighborhood stays feeling like a neighborhood.
That sounds really good right now, but the city and you are not offering to the residents of this community.
We're running out of time and we need to wrap this up. So I did mute his mic because he's not letting people finish. So I'm muted his mic. Maureen, there's one question that we can answer before we wrap up tonight, and that would be, would you be able to go through the process so people know what the next steps are and make a educated estimate about what that timeline might look like, in a medium case scenario? And as for the questions that didn't get addressed, that weren't addressed through the meeting, we will take those and we'll do our and we will attempt to answer those that we can as staff. And if Mackenzie is amenable to this, we could send them to them and they can maybe take a stab at looking at those questions.
Absolutely.
Mark, can you make sure that we get this information? Because
yes,
we're getting it backhand because I'm just saying, because they had a month on us before we even got the letters. I mean, they had lobbyists hired prior to us even getting it.
We'll post the information once we have it to the same website that you logged on to here, where this video will be available. So, and if we have anyone from the community can email Maureen. Maureen can send the link, the information to them, and they can distribute it to their community as well. So we'll offer a couple options there. You can go online, but we don't know how long it's going to take, so I can't make any timeline promises, except for the video will be posted tomorrow morning. So Maureen, in the interest of wrapping up a little bit over time, could you go over the process, and then we can wrap the meeting up.
Okay, so this is my contact information, and Jonathan Tomko is the zoning planner. That's his contact information. My team will meet, and I will present to them the questions and concerns at this meeting. We'll make a recommendation on the future land use map change, proposed change. I'll pass this information on to Jonathan. He will meet with his team and they'll make a recommendation on the zoning. I don't know when their team will meet and when we will have a finalized staff recommendation. People can keep in touch with me on any possible timeline. I don't actually know what dates are available at this point, and when like I said, when the staff recommendation will be finalized. I will post the recorded video early tomorrow morning. I will make individual maps and put them under the document section, and any other information that we have. I can also, if it helps, I can get Mackenzie's presentation and also have that posted under the document section so it won't be embedded in the recorded video, if that helps. Does that cover everything?
You'll also put your presentation up there as well.
Yes, I can do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that, any final comments, Nicole or Mackenzie?
I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time to meet with us and voice your concerns. We will make sure to send a follow-up and try to give you as much information as possible so that you feel comfortable.
And if you want to email Maureen, and she can forward Mackenzie and Nikel's contact information to anyone who does email her. So you're okay with that, Maureen?
Yeah, I actually put it in the chat, but I can certainly send it in email to anybody else who wants it.
Hey, Mackenzie, is that okay with you?
That sounds great.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank everybody taking time. I know this is people feel very strongly about this case, and I'd like to thank you for coming out and taking time to find out more and let your voices be heard. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a very good evening.
Thank you all.